E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna Guinois, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Guinois Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. The Messages of Inspirational Stories is proudly brought to you by the Good News Magazine. What's the name of that thing again there, Emerson? You remember? Hometown Good News Magazine. I just said that on purpose, just see if make him put his thinking cap on. Hometown Good News Magazine. It's going to be a magazine that's starting up. It's coming out. It's going to have a lot of great stories on it. We're also very honored to be a part of the Healing Acres Never Again. One of the founder there, Charlene, was going to be with us today. Charlene Fouts. She had to go to the doctor, and she's hadn't got released yet from the doctor, and so she wasn't able to make it. So Emerson, he was kind enough to join us on a very short notice. But we're going to be talking a little bit about, the healing traumatized hearts, something that her and Ken Nathan went through that actually created the Healing Acres Never Again. Their Facebook is down. Their webpage is down, but their Facebook, you can find them at Healing Acres Never Again. But Emerson, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us on such a short notice, brother.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And today we just like to point out a couple of things that is National Day. Today is also International Cat Day, and that's for all you cool cats out there, our fur babies. Today is International Cat Day, and for cat lovers, I'm a cat lover. We all know how special those little creatures can be and how unique they are. They truly are. And
this day is set aside to convince the rest of us we're dog people.
they don't know what they're missing out. That's what it is. We're trying to tell you, you don't know what you're missing out because, like we said many times before, dogs live with us. We live with cats. So if you understand that, because cats, they were just
staff.
They were just
staff. Your cat staff. That's what you are.
Right. They were born to rule. And they know it. It's just in their kitty DNA, And also today, Emerson, I tell you, Happiness Happens Day. That's a very unique name. I want to, take a look at that a little bit. Happiness Happens Day. Happiness can happen to you anytime you want it, as long as you let go of the stuff that's dragging you down and consuming you like a fire.
It's a decision.
Yes, it is, isn't it, Emerson?
And some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today highlights some people who made some decisions that went way beyond their circumstances, and they lived the results. Mm-hmm. But I like to say, an awful lot of times with people in relationships, is it more important to be right or to be happy?
Isn't that the truth?
And you always get the one who says, well, I want to be both. Why can't I be both? It's like,
the world doesn't turn that way.
It doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, because when people are trying to, when they're arguing, I should say, they're not really trying to solve the problem. They're trying to win their side of the argument.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's so important. Just let it go. Just let it go. The Secret Society of Happy People was founded back in 1998 by Pamela Gail Johnson. The Secret Society of Happy People. I wonder why they picked that name. That's what it was originally called. Originally a secret society to allow
Secret
members.
society.
That's right. To allow members to talk about everything that made them happy because they were genuinely happy people. Hey, the A-team's calling us. All right.
No, it was that same person that keeps trying to reach me. It's
There you go.
Mr. Likely.
Mm-hmm.
Scam Likely. Has he ever
Yeah.
tried to call you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I tell him I'm financially embarrassed. Or I know the English, senor.
I should have had it. I should have had it turned down, but there it is. Now it is.
That's all right.
One of the ones I got to point out here, Jim, is
Okay.
National Leave a Zucchini on a friend's porch day.
Oh, okay.
That's just
National.
a great. I mean, that sounds like the kind of a day I would pick.
Yeah. Yeah. Just sneak over there and leave a zucchini over there. Or how about a ear of corn or something? Whatever you got, right?
And I didn't realize that we eat zucchini all the time, but I had no idea that it wasn't even something in this country up until about the middle 1800s. It came over from Italy.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they're packed full of nutrients and they're great, and I like to grill them myself.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Or use them in stir fry.
Yeah, I tell you.
For those of you who are not into vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
you silly rabbits, you, or who your kids aren't, today's also Custard Day, National Custard Day.
Mm-hmm.
And custard being that creamy kind of ice cream stuff that comes out of machines, as opposed to the real ice cream that you scoop.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of neat.
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to hit one more because, tarantulas. Now, I know people that have a deadly fear of arachnophobia, but National Tarantula Appreciation Day.
There you go.
And most people would appreciate spiders a lot more if they never saw them. But out in Arizona, yeah. Well, out in Arizona, I remember seeing the tarantulas out there. First time I ever saw tarantulas when I lived in Arizona. And they were big boys. They certainly were.
First time I ever saw one in the wild was clear on the other side of the state from you. Orange, Texas.
Orange,
right there on the border.
Yep.
Right on the border between Texas and Louisiana, and we had pulled over for lunch or something. As many of the viewers know, my first marriage, my first family was from the valley, from South Texas. So we made lots and lots of trips all the way across the country. But we had lunch, and we're pulling out we're getting back up onto the interstate, and here's this tarantula walking across the entrance ramp, and this thing had to be the size of a basketball.
Oh,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
I was afraid to run over it. I was afraid its fangs would give me a flat tire.
Oh yeah. Take a bite out of them radials there. Back in the 8th century AD, tarantulas were actually mentioned in literature. It's the first time they were mentioned in literature. It was from the Roman poet Ovid in his poem Metamorphosis. And I know a lot of people have a deathly fear of tarantulas or any type of spider. I understand that and I respect that. And personally, they don't bother me, but I don't want spiders around me. No question about it. I mean, there's a place for them, and their place is not in my place.
There's a great scene from the movie Home Alone where the kid in it drops his pet tarantula on the bad guy's face, and the bad guy is laying on his back screaming, and he's for his friend to do something, and his friend takes a bat and just bashes his head to kill the spider, misses the spider. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, that was a scream. It was so funny. But talking about traumatized hearts, Charlene Fouts, who also is one of our hosts here on the show, along with Ken Nathan, they both came from backgrounds. They met about 20 years ago, back in the 90s. It was actually at a church and they went to some type of a church meeting or something, revival, whatever it might have been. And most importantly, the thing was, they were caught up into, you know, the trauma part of it, and they shared each other's story to each other, and they parted their ways. And then about, I don't know, several years ago, they saw each other, met up on Facebook, and they started exchanging they picked up where they left off. That's what I should say. Now, in the process of that, let me share first with you where Charlene was coming from. We had her originally on the original series where everybody was on Zoom and Facebook Live back in 2020. And we were all hoping every time we went to the grocery store, the first place we went was to the paper aisle for paper products, as you very well know. Charlene came on the show, and I was really amazed about two things about Charlene. Number one was the light that I saw in her eyes, and she's got a beautiful smile. And you would never, ever, ever think this lady came from that type of background. As a small girl, she suffered incest from her father. Think about the mental scar she had there. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about this, how we can, be our own worst enemy. But then that started the ball rolling downhill for her. And she, went through abusive relationships. She had an abusive marriage. She was raped one time. Just a lot of horrible things happening to her. And as I'm sitting there, just like I'm sitting here now, and I'm just looking at her talk, because she had center stage, because I would just remove myself off to the side, but I'm watching her. And I'm looking at this lady's face, a very attractive young lady that's got a light in her eye, a smile in her voice, and she's just vibrating hope and energy. And yes, there is a tomorrow. And she told the story about how her aunt kind of understood something was going on, and she would take Charlene out as a young girl, and they would do gardening, and she would plant a tree. And that was the catalyst for Healing Acres Never Again. That's where the term came from. Well, then Ken Nathan, we've had him on our show, right the very first season, as a matter of fact, had him on twice. Ken Nathan, his family came from India. And his dad got a promotion or got a job offer. They moved from India to Australia. And things didn't work out there for his dad. It was kind of like overpromise, underdeliver, I guess. And his dad drank some, and his dad would gamble some. And they were just, barely, making it. And his dad was on his way home late one night from work in 1985. And these guys who knew nothing about Ken's dad, other than he was an Indian from India, these horrible men, evil, wicked, just terrible people, they grabbed him, dragged him off, at the bus station there, where they let the passengers off. They grabbed him there at the bus stop, drug him into an alley. They doused him with gasoline, and they set him on fire. Fortunately, his dad survived, but the horror that put on the family, they were scared to death, and the trauma that he dealt with. And now Ken and Charlene meet up, and they've got a common cause, because they learned how to survive all of that trauma, all of that fear. And Healing Acres Never Again just means we've got a place. It's a program. It's in the United States, on several places across the United States. They're in Australia, where Ken is at. They're also in Africa and over in Europe. And it's a place where never again will we allow these things happen to you. And it's a wonderful, inspiring story of how two people from different walks of life came together for a common cause, to reach out and help people who are suffering from having a traumatized life. And Emerson, that is so important, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm not going to use the term victim.
No.
Because in my experience, many of the people who have been through some of these traumatic experiences don't identify
Yeah.
in their life as a victim.
It's
And
like
that's
people
very
who
important.
it's like people have physical disability. Do not
Don't
insult
identify
them
it.
and say they're handicapped. Yeah.
That's right. It's not a handicap.
The only people's handicap is me. I'm mentally handicapped. So that's a gimme. That's okay. But other than
But
that, don't go
but
there.
but it's taken a long time
Mm-hmm.
to recognize, what we would call what happened to his dad today is a hate crime,
Yes.
which is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a racial, maybe sexual.
Mm-hmm.
I did research when I was in college many years ago,
Mm-hmm.
um, on rape in the town that I went to college in, Tallahassee, FSU, and had a lot of resistance from the law enforcement community and all. Why are you interested in all of this? And I was collecting data and numbers, and I found some really amazing things, but it changed my entire attitude about assault, sexual assault in that case, but it also extends out to physical and verbal and everything else. And I interviewed people who were convicted rapists and that. And what was amazing to me was, I'm going to be very graphic here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the people who are convicted rapists would say things like, when it comes over me, I don't care. It can be a car, it can be a tree, and I have an axe. And the whole idea was, I always assumed, like many people do, that those are sexual crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And they are from the physical standpoint.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. But they're really crimes of anger and power and low self-esteem and all sorts of drivers that person is putting down, pushing down, holding down somebody else's life, and they have total control. It's about control, and it's about those things. And it's sad and it's sick. And the person
Yeah.
who is the recipient of it has nothing at all to do with any of that.
No,
They just
not at
happen to
all.
be there. Like the guy said, it can be a car that he's gunning at 120 miles an hour, and it can be, a tree he's cutting down. He doesn't care at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not even seeing the victim, and I'm using the
Right.
term here as victim. They're not even
Right.
seeing their victim as a person.
Mm-mm.
They're not really, in many cases, even seeing them in a sexual way.
Yeah.
It's about power.
Yeah.
It's about their own lack of esteem
Yeah.
and their own lack of empowerment that they can take it out on somebody else.
Wow.
And the challenge is, on one side, making it healing anchors never again. But the challenge is taking that and doing everything we can to eliminate it, doing everything that we can to contain it. But
Mm-hmm.
for the person that's the recipient of it, is creating the support network and that emotional, mental, loving, sometimes financial,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes safety, whatever types of things are needed
Mm-hmm.
in order to help them rebuild
Mm-hmm.
their life. And I'm just going to digress for just a moment, Jim.
Go
You and
ahead.
I have talked about this before on the show. I had a serious head injury a couple of years ago. You had a serious heart surgery, heart attack, heart surgery. And a lot of times people talk about when we get back to,
Oh,
when
yeah.
things are back to normal, in our economy, or when you'll be 100% again. That's not what any of it's about. And in terms of trauma, for anybody who's suffered trauma, and I think you and I
Mm-hmm.
qualify on at least one level for that, to be
Sure.
able to say, I don't look at needing to be 100%. What I
Oh,
look at is
no.
every day of my life
Yeah.
improving, every
Oh,
day
yeah.
better and better, every
Yeah.
single day finding the joy, finding the peace, finding the empowerment, finding the self awareness and the ability, not just for me,
Mm-hmm.
but the ability that we all need, and that is to be able to be a blessing to somebody else as well, because that's where real value comes from, is to be
Yeah.
able to be that blessing to
Yeah.
somebody else.
You're absolutely right because, ladies and gentlemen, after my mild heart attack, it was a mild heart attack. I had a condition in my heart known as the widowmaker, and that's a serious condition that you have in the heart. And I had to have I was going to go in for stents, and they found out after they had me in there, I said, "Stents won't work for you, Jim. You got to have open heart." The first time I heard the word cabbage, CABG, they use these acronyms, doctors do, and they have these funny handwritings you can't read. And so, what in the world am I going to do with cabbage? And I found out it stood for coronary artery bypass grafting, which means they'll take the veins out of my legs and they will graft the bypasses from below the blockage to the above the blockage and all that. And people have said things, oh my gosh, Jim, that must have been a surreal moment for you, or, I mean, I'm so sorry it happened. And I said, really, I'm glad it happened. It was a blessing in disguise because I had a mild heart attack. I had to have surgery to get it corrected.
Well, and you weren't even aware that you were having one when they caught it when you were in being checked.
Yeah, I mean, it's how smart I am, And I'm telling them, hey, we can just drive on over from the ER to the hospital, and they says, no, you don't realize how serious a condition you're in. Your blood pressure is 190 over 111, and but I mean, realistically, at times like that, you just simply, if you count your blessings and your, how do I say this, Emerson? I mean, just be grateful for the blessings that come your
Gratitude,
way. Yeah, gratitude. Thank you, sir.
gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I've seen that in your life, and I've seen you progress from your injury. And right now, I'd say you're about 98%, maybe 99. You might be 101%. You know that, brother?
Well,
But
we've talked about it before, and I
mhm,
meant every word that I said, and that
yeah.
is, and I've talked about the Japanese concept of kaizen, which is
Hmm.
continuous improvement. And when
Yes.
when when you stop trying to set some imaginary point
Hmm.
where you'll be okay, man, I'll be so glad when things get back to normal or whatever.
Hmm.
But you look to every day,
Hmm.
and you look for it to be a day where you can improve,
Hmm.
incremental improvement every
Hmm.
single day. And it's not even that it becomes a focus. What am I going to do today to improve?
Yeah.
It's that every day we have the challenges. Every day we have, you know, uh, people that we love who have PTSD. Um, they hear a car backfire, and
Mm.
all of a sudden they're back in the jungle, or they're back in
Yeah.
in the Middle East, and they're
Yeah.
and they're on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
And there's part of us that is wired. It's not about they'll be back to who they were before all of the experiences that they had. You were in Vietnam.
Oh.
There's no way to go back to the boy before he went to
Mm.
Vietnam.
Mm.
There's no 100% back to that person.
No.
What there is continuous improvement
Hmm.
in our life.
Mm.
and moving beyond trauma, moving beyond PTSD, moving beyond the damage that somebody else or some other circumstance or our health has inflicted on us. That's where our joy comes in, our happiness comes in, that's where empowerment comes in, and that's where we're now able to reach out and affect other people's lives, which brings more meaning and more empowerment into your own life.
You know, when I came back from Vietnam in 1970, there was no one there for me. I was just 21 years of age, and I knew I shouldn't have come back alive. So therefore, I did not realize I was carrying the guilt complex. I didn't even know what the guilt complex was. The only thing that I knew is that when I got home, we sat down, a few days later, of course, not the same day, but a couple of days, on the weekend, my family came over. We're going to have a family dinner, and we're all eating. And one of my sisters looked at me and she says, "Hey, Jim, what was it like over there?" And I looked up, and all eyes are on me, and I can't handle it. And I got up and I walked down. Excuse me, I got to go to the bathroom. I walked down the hallway, sat down in my room, and all the things that I had in my room, the model cars I put together, it seemed like there was a 10-year gap from the guy that left the room to go in the Army in April of 1968 to the guy that came home right before Mother's Day of 1970 after serving 69 and part of 70 in Vietnam. And I asked myself this question, I never will forget. I says, why am I not happy? I'm home, because I always thought home would be a solve
That was the
everything
goal.
problem. Yeah. Solve everything. I'd be home and poof, I'd be, brand new, right? The old me would be back. It didn't happen that way. And ladies and gentlemen, for a few moments there, I thought I was losing my mind for not being happy, and it scared me. And I remember I got up and I walked into the bathroom and I washed my face. And I looked in the mirror, and I really felt like my knees were going to buckle. And I'm going to speed this thing up a little bit. I drank a lot in the 70s. I quit drinking January the 1st, 1981. I just walked away from it. Booze is not the answer. That's not who I am. But I look back now, and I'm thankful for the things I went through, because it made me stronger. It made me appreciate the finer things of life, like love and friendship and family, not money, not glory and fame and all that nonsense, but the true things in life that I love and appreciate, that money cannot buy, nor can any thief break in and steal it from me. And, so I would never consider myself to be a victim of the Vietnam War, not at all, or blame anything that's going on in my life because I served in Vietnam. That's not accepting responsibility in my eyes. And so many times, Emerson, sometimes people, when they go through hard things and trials, they kind of continue on a self-destructive type of course, don't they? And they haven't come to grips with that. And there's so many people, I think you've probably known people in your life, I've known people in my life that they go through abusive relationships. And it seemed like, I've known several ladies in my life. It seemed like they go from kalam, bam to wham. Stop going shopping for a boyfriend or a husband at a bar.
Well, you had a valid point there. And of course, this isn't true for everybody, but we all know people who have serial bad relationships, or even abusive relationships. And of course, everybody watches and knows that. I think at this point that my background is all in marketing and working with companies and individuals to help find the people that you don't want and attract more of the people that you do. And in business, and I'm going to run this back over to the personal, but businesses tend to do what I call get all you can and can all you get. You know, they run the Facebook ads, they run, or the newspaper, radio, TV, whatever, different media that they're using to try to get as much traffic, try to get as many people in the door, try to get as many people they can to their site, and get them to buy, get them to buy. And the thing is, I really believe that's a wrong approach. And I relate it to the person who has serial relationships that are abusive. Sooner or later, in the 80-20 rule we've talked about on the show before, Jim, you know, we spend 80% of our time on the things that really bring us 20% of what we want in life or in business. And we spend 20% of our time on the things that we really want in our life and business. And so in terms of the focus that we have, you know, it's like at some point along the way, you have to say, listen, girlfriend, hold that mirror up to your face, you know. So, hey, listen, guy, come over here. Let's stand in front of the mirror just a minute. I want you know, if you're putting out the message, you're attracting those people. What is the message that you're putting out? I'm not talking about if somebody dresses provocatively and little silly stuff like that. I'm talking about the person who sadly goes from one to another to another to another, or the business who keeps attracting the wrong person, the wrong people as their clients, and it just drives the staff nuts, and they're angry and they're abusive, and they're always complaining, and you can't ever make them happy, and all of that. We have to look at ourselves, because what I put out, it's like a rubber ball. What I put out, that's what's going to come back. And that message, now this is, please, all of you, don't be writing Jim and saying I'm blaming the victims, because I'm not blaming the victims ever. I am not. They have added, listen, if somebody does something to you, that's on them. I'm not blaming the victim here. But what I'm saying is sometimes in our life, we can tend to attract the wrong people in our life.
Yes.
We're putting it out. What is it that I'm putting out that's attracting them? And again, I come at it from a business and marketing standpoint as well, because most businesses do the same thing. It's nuts. It drives your people crazy. You know, what do you want? Would you rather have the phone ring and have them say, "Oh, it's Miss So-and-so," and go, "Oh God, not again. Why does she keep calling?" Or do you want it to be the phone rings, it's Miss So-and-so? Oh, wow, that's great. I haven't talked with her in weeks. Oh my goodness, I wonder how she's doing. Put her
She
through.
made my day.
Who is it that you want to be spending your time working with? Now, in your private life, who is it that you really want? And Jim, I'm going to take it a step further.
Okay.
Because you've been through some of the marketing training that I do for companies and corporations. But it starts with that message that we're putting out. You can change who you are attracting and what you are attracting in your life. I'm a believer in the law of attraction. I'm also a believer in the law of repulsion. You can repel the things that you don't want, and you can attract the things that you do. You can repel. You don't have to be rude, mean, nasty, ugly, or they may not even be aware that you're doing it. But you're putting out the vibes. You're putting out the energy, as Jim likes to say. You know, you're putting out the message that's attracting those things. That's personal responsibility in our life.
Yes.
It's not responsibility. You're not responsible for somebody else doing something that or acting in a certain way or taking advantage of you or any of those things. You're not responsible for them and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
but we are responsible for ourselves and what we're putting out. It's easier to begin to think in terms of putting out the message
Mm-hmm.
that is attracting what you want and repelling what you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot easier than just getting the good and the bad and the ugly and then having to sift, sort, and separate and go through all of that mess.
Mm-hmm.
It's true in business. It's true in our personal lives.
It really is.
You
And
know what I mean,
I'm,
Jim?
oh, yeah, it really is. I'm glad you brought that out because, a lot of people, they don't realize that they're going, that they're actually sending that type of information out. And I remember you sharing the story one time or talking about uh, there was either a company or individual that was there was no way you could actually please the person or the company, and you in a nice way that you would say, or you said, uh, there's another company I know that's better equipped to meet your needs.
Yeah.
And what happened was, and correct me if I'm wrong, the you made that introduction, and the other company or group went over there, and it was a win-win situation for them.
And they loved each other.
Yeah, but for you, that freed you up
Yeah.
to allow you to attract the people that you could help, because there's some people you just can't help in this world, in
Well,
the
and
marketing
I even
sense.
call that, and this goes back to an old movie. Now they remade the movie, but an old movie called Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh
And
yeah.
Santa Claus, the real Santa Claus, was in it,
Mm-hmm.
and skeptical little girl, and anybody who hasn't seen it, check it out. It's a great old movie. But
Mm-hmm.
there's this scene in there where this lady is trying to find this toy,
Oh
and
yeah.
Santa takes this thing out of his pocket, takes his notepad out, and he goes, "They don't have it here, but if you
Mm-hmm.
go over to this store, and
Mm-hmm.
here's the information, and here's how much they are, and oh my goodness, they have a great selection of them." And she looks at him, she goes, "I don't get it." Gimbals, I think the department store was Gimbals in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Gimbals referring people to other stores. She goes to the store manager. "I don't get it. Well, this gimmick, sending customers to this other store. I think it's great. I can't believe that you did that. I'm going to do all my shopping here at Gimbals from now on. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't get it. I can't believe it." And he ended up getting fired over it, but that's anybody who's seen the story knows how it all
Mm-hmm.
ends.
Oh
But
yeah.
that, I call it the Miracle on 34th Street.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your job to please everybody.
Yeah.
And not
Exactly.
only is it not your job, you are not physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, or any other way capable of
Mm-hmm.
pleasing everybody. You just
Yeah.
can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you own a business, I'll put it to you in business terms. Even Coca-Cola doesn't have the entire market. McDonald's, they don't have the entire market. There are people who will not eat at McDonald's,
Mm-hmm.
and there are people who will not eat at Burger King. And I'm
Yeah.
just pulling some names out of the air right now.
Right.
Everybody, you
Right.
understand what I'm doing. But
Sure.
I'm saying nobody can serve everybody. Nobody can please everybody. So figure out what you don't want, who you don't want, and the things
Mm-hmm.
you don't want in your life, and then focus on the things that you do,
Yeah.
and split those two out.
Mm-hmm. And whenever a person is coming back, dealing with trauma and problems that they've encountered in their life, I really like what you pointed out there earlier, Emerson, about how they were in a control situation by a sick mind. Let's
Mm-hmm.
call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
The sick individual did not realize that that person was a human being. That
They didn't
person
care if they did.
didn't care,
Yeah.
didn't care. So that has nothing to do with you, because I know a lot of rape. When I say I know a lot of rape victims, I've read about a lot of rape victims that they were, they want, first thing they want to do is go home and take a shower. I'm speaking about the ladies, and it washes away evidence. And many of them, it used to be Emerson, back. And as sad as it is, it used to be rape victims were actually afraid to come forward and file a complaint because some knucklehead in society would say it's their fault.
Oh, that's been classic. That's
Oh,
been
yeah.
classic. Yeah.
That's about it. And for those knuckleheads out there who think that a lady, it's her fault, I feel sorry for you for being that ignorant and undereducated. Because as Emerson so, plainly pointed out, that this person doesn't care if it's a car or a tree or a human being. They don't even see the human being.
Mm-mm.
It's all about them having power and control. And, they have a very low self-esteem. That's why, I think it's in Proverbs where it talks about jealousy is a form of hatred and it wounds cruelly. And that's so true. So you think about, I used to be jealous when I was younger of my wife. I'll admit it. I'm not anymore. She of course, one look at me and well, I can understand why she's not jealous of you. But my point being is that when I read that, I didn't like what it said because it said I didn't love my wife the way I should have if I was jealous of her. That's a checkup from the neck up, isn't it, Emerson?
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard pill to swallow, but you can't run from truth.
And there's a whole. I'm not going to call it. It's not underground. It's just a little side current. There's a whole movement, or a whole growing number
Mm-hmm.
of men known as incels. Okay, which
Oh.
stands for involuntarily celibate,
Mm-hmm.
and they blame women basically. They blame women, and so they do some awful things online, and the point is they don't take the personal responsibility for themselves,
Mm.
and they
Amen.
blame women.
That's the
So,
coward's way out, isn't it?
well,
It's not my fault. It's their fault. I mean,
it
really.
is, but it's the thing is their own self-esteem and other issues,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm calling them that. They would call it reality, because perception. Write this down, folks. If you've never heard this before, perception is reality. Your
Mm-hmm.
perception it becomes your reality,
Mm-hmm.
and their perception is what I just described. And
Mm-hmm.
so for them, that is their reality. And being jerks, being ugly, hounding people online, and doing all sorts of other things and worse, and physically and everything else. In their mind, that's the reality is somehow, they're justified, and it validates them. That's a
Mm-hmm.
self-esteem thing. That's a mental and emotional issue. The thing is, the people who are their targets, it's not anything that they did. It's not anything about them
Mm-hmm.
that that's the core of that. I'm responsible for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible to you,
Mm-hmm.
Jim, to our audience. I'm not responsible for Jim. I'm not responsible for my children. I'm responsible to my children.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference there.
Yes.
When your kid is throwing that tantrum out in the middle of the grocery store and everything else, and you know what? That's not you.
Mm-hmm.
That's your child. And personal responsibility is responsible to that child,
Mm-hmm.
to guide that child, to correct that child,
Mm-hmm.
to love that child, and
Yeah.
and and everything else. But you are not responsible for
Mm-hmm.
the way that child acts, and that's true for other people
Mm-hmm.
across the board. If you have a spouse or a partner, who shoots off in the mouth or embarrasses and or whatever, you know what? You are not responsible for that person.
Exactly. I want to take that one step further, and this falls on a lot of leaders and supervisors, and that simply is be responsible to your subordinates and do not be responsible for them, because if you become responsible for them, they will adopt you.
It's true. That is true. And I add this to that. Nobody in the world, nobody in your company, nobody around you can do it the way exactly you would do it, and maybe even be as good as what you can do. You don't need somebody else to be a cookie cutter of you. And in terms of a company, you know what? The key to me is, how many people can I find who are at least 70% as effective as I am at something? And then let them flourish. Encourage them.
Yeah.
Guide them.
Yeah.
Help them improve.
Yes.
Give them more responsibility.
Yeah.
Give them more leeway. Maybe they did it a little differently, but let's see how it works out, and let them learn. Let them grow.
One of the wonderful things that you can do to help go and grow, and Emerson, we've done this a lot, and that is have a mastermind, because that's where the energy comes, and that's where better ideas, I mean, the mastermind produces much better ideas or a more complete picture or a clearer picture than what one individual can. And we had a little mastermind today, and we cleared up some gray areas there, because I shared with Emerson, I got to be honest, this is bothering me. We're not up to where we're not good enough, and but see, the point of it that is that to have the courage to be honest, people will appreciate that and will encourage participation. And guess what? The energy and the wisdom from Emerson, it solved something that was gnawing at me. And the point being, not to sound insultive, but I might not, or you may not be smart enough to figure that out on your own. Because sometimes we can get consumed by a problem or worrying about something, and it can preoccupy our time. It can cloud good judgment, and that's why the energy from a mastermind is so valuable. And we've had many masterminds, and Emerson's such a nice guy. He says, "Okay, Jim, we're going to have a mastermind, but you're not going to mind, so that's okay. I'm going to love you anyway."
Well, we had with a partner, we had a mastermind during COVID, and we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 240, 250 different national speakers that joined that mastermind. And the whole objective was, we don't want to come together and talk about how bad things are, who's doing this, who's doing that, politics, this or whatever. But we want to come together, bring our best to the table.
Amen.
And then listen to each other, and share from our best experience and knowledge base. How can we not just survive, but thrive in this new normal?
Oh yeah.
And you can do that with people in your local community organizations that you may be part of, the chamber, or church group, or community group, or whatever. You can do it with your own family.
Yes.
And
yes.
The idea is everybody brings their best to the table.
Amen.
You bring your best to the table and give full focus to the person at that moment who is dealing with a challenge. Maybe it's an opportunity, a decision, whatever it is. They're dealing with that and trying to figure out what should they do? What would be a path that they could take? And masterminds are wonderful to do with your family.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But also people in your community, people at your church, like I said,
Sure.
or other business organizations.
That was one of the things that I learned the hard way back in the 80s. I was serving on the board of a local fire department. We were a small community fire department, neighbor helping neighbor. And we had one of the firefighters get hurt. And so I'm thinking, hey, how does that get covered? And I found out through workers' comp. So I found out in the state, well, workers' comp, you got to pay so much into it. And of course, we were just neighbor helping neighbor. If the truck needed tires, we'd have a bake sale or whatever, keep donating money to we had enough money to buy tires for one of our trucks. And the ladies out there, they taught me how you could take this is out in Arizona now, you could take a 5-gallon bucket of water and a mop and put out grass fires. They did it very, very well. Just dunk that mop, boom, because it would smother out the oxygen. With no oxygen, there's no flame. And so I get on the bandwagon. And I'm telling people, we need to, we need to go district, which means taxation. I said, because look at all these people out here who have property, don't pay a dime or don't contribute a dime to us, because overall would be less money, this and that and all that. And we need to have workers' comp, because if a neighbor goes over to help another neighbor fight a fire at their house or something, and there's a cave in or something like that, they get hit with something and get trapped in the fire or get injured. Now they're in a position where they're going to have to sue their neighbor to cover their medical bills. And what I did not know, or what I did not realize, was that I couldn't understand why no one could see what I saw coming. The bottom line was, all of us wanted everyone to be protected. The problem was my approach. And, because you mentioned the word taxes to people, and guess what they do? That's what I ran into. But then there was another, if I'd approached it a different way, it eventually did go district, not through my efforts. I was, you might say, brought up the idea and stirred up the community. I did that. And didn't get any Christmas cards that year, if I remember correctly. But anyway, my point being is that sometimes having an open mind in discussing things, even when it comes to get things off your chest, be open-minded and be able to accept, someone's positive feedback. Like if you're going from a abusive relationship to abusive relationship, stop doing what you've been doing. And be receptive to that, because some people, they get a little, rub their fur the wrong way, as the old saying goes.
I'm going to share this for all of our viewers.
Okay.
If you want to have a hoot, go to YouTube, look up Bob Newhart. Remember Bob Newhart?
Oh, yeah.
Bob Newhart show? Look up Bob Newhart, Stop It.
Oh.
It is the funniest. You will hurt yourself laughing. He's a psychiatrist, and that's the answer to everything. Basically, is stop it. But only Bob Newhart can do Bob Newhart. So I encourage all of our viewers.
Oh yeah.
After the show is over, go to YouTube, look up Bob Newhart, Stop It.
Yeah. Amen.
And don't be drinking milk or water or Coke or anything when you'll be starting, it'll be going, it'll be a mess. It'll just be a mess. Yeah. It is funny. It is funny.
It really is, because Bob is just fantastic. And another great comedian, of course, this is not along those lines, but another great comedian, and this was a promptu kind of a deal, was Tim Conway on Mama's Family, when he's talking about the elephant. If you're overdue for a good laugh, just Google those two there on YouTube. You'll be good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, our time is about gone. We're closing in on the 4:00 hour here in Texas, and 5:00 there in Emerson, and probably 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock somewhere else, But we want to thank you so much for tuning in today. We're going to be back tomorrow. I think Donna and I are going to put on the show tomorrow. And if not, Donna and Emerson will be here. But we're going to be putting on the show here. We're hoping Charlene can join us real soon, because she's had a little procedure done on her. And we're looking forward to getting her back with us, because the story that she has and the way that she can touch a lot of people's hearts out there, not just ladies, but men too. She touched my heart. She's a very special lady. And I imagine you learned a couple of things about her today, Emerson, you probably didn't know, but you've seen her. You know the way she is, her personality, how beautiful she is, what a smile she's got and all. And the light in her eyes, that's the thing that just really made an impression on me. What a
Sometimes
beautiful.
talking about painful things are important.
Yes, yes, it is.
It's not to dwell on them. It's not to constantly be reliving them. It's to be able to deal with them, put them down, and move on with your life.
And say, I'm going to let it go.
Yep.
I'm going to let it go. That's
it.
Huge. It really is. And Healing Acres Never Again, their website is being worked on right now, but you can find them on Facebook. And also to The 7 Levels of Truth by Mr. Bill Heinrich. That's his book there. 7 Levels of Truth. You can see it there. And that's Mr. Bill there on the back, a good friend of ours. In fact, him and I both have taken classes from Emerson. And we know Bill, and the 7 Levels of Truth, it's on Amazon. It will give you a lot of great information, getting your mind clarity, and how to deal with things. Most importantly, how to love yourself and let things go that do not serve you. That's very important.
It is so important.
Yeah, because many times
there's something very powerful about finding forgiveness.
Amen.
And because it releases something inside of you when you.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Because you'd say, this is not who I am. I'm not going to carry this burden.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let it go. I'm going to love myself to let it go. Go ahead, sir.
Somebody says, I can never forgive this person or this action. And the thing is, by not forgiving, what happens is your brain continues to relive it over and over again. And your subconscious does not know the difference between subconscious and dream world or anything else and the real world. So
that's right.
All of those things are still there until we release that.
Yeah. In other words, it holds you captive. You're your own prisoner. And you can
forgiveness is about us.
Yes.
It does not justify anything.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't make it right. It says, not at all. I'm going to cleanse myself of it and give it up.
I'm going to set myself free. Amen. That's it in a nutshell. You owe that. Yeah, you owe that to yourself. You really do.
You really do.
Because
you're worth it.
Yeah, you are definitely worth it. We're out of time, ladies and gentlemen. Emerson, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. We love you. And you're just a heck of a nice guy.
Well, I kind of like you too there, partner.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same station. We look forward to sharing.
Tell everyone you know.
Okay.
Watch the show.
There you go. There you go. We'll see you later, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.